Hey, good morning, Moms and Master Books. Hope your day is going fantastic. Welcome to Teaching Tips Thursday. Um, Homeschooling isn't easy because parenting isn't easy, right? If you have the moment they give you that baby and you take on the responsibility of parenting that child, you realize it's just not easy. And it doesn't get any easier the older they get. And so I think there's hope. And I think in order for there to be hope, though, we have to be very intentional as parents. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is a way to start upping the game and taking it to the next level, but not being overwhelmed by it. A quote that I use often, and I heard, good morning, Stephanie, good morning, Julie, is that what's the best way to eat an elephant? Well, if I look at that elephant and I think I've got to eat it all in one sitting, or I've got to eat the entire thing, the best answer to that is you eat the elephant one bite at a time. And that mindset is also helping us develop some patience, that change doesn't have to happen overnight to be effective. We just have to be intentionally about our changes and move forward from that standpoint. So let me tell you a story. The British cycling team was notoriously, I think it was the name of the cycling team is Team Sky. They were notoriously bad. In 76 years, they had only won one gold medal. They were so bad that a popular bike manufacturer asked that they don't use their bikes because they didn't want their bike ridden in public by this team, because they didn't want people to think that it was their bike that made them that bad. So to be bad enough as a cycling team that a popular bike manufacturer says, don't ride our bike, you've got to be pretty bad. Well, they hired a gentleman named Sir David Brailsford, and he was a cycler, but he was also an MBA. And so he took a business principle and he applied it to the cycling team. So, hey, everybody, Desiree's here, Karen's here. Awesome. Okay, so the theory that he applied is called the theory of marginal gains. And in order to do that, what he did was he looked at the entire process of the bike process, of the riding process, and said, throughout all of what we do, if we could just improve each section 1%, I believe that we would have enough gains that we would win gold medals. And so they began looking at everything they did, and they said, are there places that we can improve things just 1%? So they looked and they said, well, every night when the cyclists are riding, or when they move into a new hotel, they have new pillows and they're not getting good night's sleep. So here's one thing we can do. We'll have them take their pillows and just bring their pillows with them. Simple, just a simple fix. They realized that it seems like we deal with a lot of sickness and illness when we're on the circuit and we're riding or at the Olympics. And so they brought in a surgeon and they said, can you just teach them how to wash their hands like you would for surgery? And so they taught the entire team how to wash their hands, and they also prohibited shaking of hands. And in doing that, they reduced the sickness. Now that's not a big deal, right? If you're going to take over a cycling team that isn't winning gold medals, that is so bad that they can't, the other companies don't even want them on their bikes. You don't think, well, they need to wash their hands better, or they need to use their pillows. But they did that with a lot of different things. They looked at massage oils and said, is there 1% increase on the massage oils we're using that would just give us a little bit better, the athletes like it better, maybe it has better whatever. And so they would choose the better massage oil over the other one. And they just began looking at that. Well, did it work? It did. In 2008, the British cycling team won 7 out of 10 gold medals in Beijing. In the London Games, 4 years later, they won 7 out of 10 gold medals. And then they won 4 out of 5 Tour de France's, where up until that time, no British cyclist had won any gold medals. And so it's a brilliant concept to say, rather than having to do this huge change to bring about change, we just look at little things that we're doing to bring about improvements. And over time, we'll build on those improvements. Well, I think in our homeschools and in our families, we can do that as well. Parenting isn't easy. Having a family isn't easy. Add homeschooling to it, it's not going to be easy, but I think we can be successful. So how could we apply the theory of marginal gains, or improving things by just 1%, to making our homeschools better and more effective, to making our families happier and more successful, and to enjoy what we're doing? So as we talk about this, if you have ideas or anything resonates, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to read them as I'm going along. The first thing, and I've said this in previous videos as well, was that we do have to know the mission. What is the desired outcome for our homeschools, right? If we get in a car and we start driving, if you don't know where you're going and you just start driving around, you may discover some really neat things, but you don't know where you're going to end up, and you don't know that you're going to discover anything at all. When you get in a car and you know your destination, everything you do begins working towards that destination. So for a cycling team, it was very easy because what they wanted to do was win gold medals. And so when they're looking at 1%, they're looking at the fact that if we want to win a gold medal, what we need to do is improve 1% to make our athletes more healthy, more comfortable, to improve the equipment, that type of stuff, because they knew what they wanted to do. So many of us approach parenting like the family that gets in the car and just says, okay, start driving. We'll know it when we get there. And that's not really very effective. It's not effective in business. It's not effective in relationships. It's not effective as parenting. We really need to have some idea of what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What do we want for our children? I want my children to be successful in life. That's what I want. I want them to love the Lord, to be known by the Lord. I want them to love other people, to treat other people the way they would want to be treated. And I want them to be successful. So everything I'm doing as a parent is the same as if I was getting in the car saying, I am going to drive from Arkansas this morning to New York. And to do that, I know that I need to head northeast and I need to get on this highway, and that's how we're going to do it. So destination is really important if we want to see any improvement. We have a feel for it. That's right, said she needs to start using her pillow more too. That's funny. Amen. Destination is so important, right? That until we've defined what we want for our families, what we want for our children, what we want out of our relationships, how do we even know where to go? So my first suggestion for anybody, if you haven't done a mission statement, if you haven't been intentional about your family, is to really develop that intentional aspect. What do I want for my children? What is my purpose and intent for my homeschool? So important. Once we know destination, we know where we're going, then we can begin looking at what can we do in the processes that we have to begin bringing about small incremental changes that could improve our homeschool. So let's see, just going through a few things. If you can relate to this, let me know. But you, the teacher, let's start the process. We know for me, I want my children to succeed. I want them to be successful. Okay, so as the teacher, starting place, because so much of what happens in our school depends around me or my wife, the teacher. But for this moment, I'm going to pretend I'm the teacher. Okay, so I'm the teacher. As I look at the changes that I can bring about, I don't need drastic change. If you're a mom, and you have one kid or you have 10 kids and you have a life and you have a husband that has needs and family that has needs and friends that have needs, you know the stresses. Nobody has time for huge changes, but is there a percentage of something I can do to be more effective in parenting and homeschooling? So 1%. Is there 1% of something I can do to do that to? I think, you all can correct me if I'm wrong, But in serving this market for 20 years and coming into contact with thousands of homeschool moms, I think homeschool moms are notoriously bad at taking care of themselves. And I understand that families need to be taken care of and kids need to be taken care of, but sometimes families need to be trained to also understand that mom is a person and an individual who also needs to take time to help herself. No different than the airplane, right? If the oxygen, something's going on in the plane and the oxygen mask comes down, if you don't put that mask on your face first and you don't make sure you have oxygen, you have a limited amount of time that you can help anybody else. And I think a lot of moms operate on that principle that they're able to do it and they can continue helping other people, but they're not taking the oxygen first. 1 minute or 1% of the day is 15 minutes. Is there something you could do to build up yourself in 15 minutes? Can you make sure that you have a healthy snack, right? We know that nutrition is important, but very few of us actually practice it. And so are we actually making sure that we're getting good food to help our brains? Are we making sure that we're doing a little bit of something to get some physical exercise? Are we making sure that maybe we're just getting fed spiritually? 1% of the day is 15 minutes. So is there a way that you could set apart just 15 minutes to make sure that you're feeding yourself, that you're giving yourself some oxygen to help yourself to be healthy, to serve those around you? Just 15 minutes. When I pastored, I would say to the church, listen, most of us are struggling because we don't like sitting there for an hour and praying. We don't want to read the Bible for an hour. But can we do 5 minutes a day? Well, in 5 minutes a day, if you just did 5 minutes a day, that's 30 hours. So if I told you that, hey, every year I spend 30 hours of just deep Bible study, that would be impressive. Well, maybe I did 30 hours, but I did it in 5 minutes a day. And I was intentional about it, and I built good habits so that my brain felt good about it as well. But 1% of the day, 15 minutes of mommy time, if you will, that's 91 hours a year. That's all, 91 hours a year, 15 minutes a day that you've devoted to yourself just to find a way to be healthy. And it doesn't have to mean that you went on a strict diet. It doesn't mean that you did all kinds of cardio and that type of thing. It's just a way to be healthy, that you find a place, either, a devotional or something, some way of helping you educate yourself. Okay, so that's one place we can look at is the mommy time. 15%, 1%, or 15 minutes a day, 1%. Is there something you can do to give yourself just some healthy time? Time management with a family. I'm very firm in business believing this. It's not as easy to do on the home. But there's a principle, it's called the 80-20 rule, the Pratt principle, which is that 80% of our effectiveness in life comes from, or what we do in business, comes from 20% of our activities. Meaning 80% of what we do only produces 20% of our effectiveness. We want to be conscious of the 80% that we do, because there's still important activities there. But the effectiveness, if my goal is to produce healthy, successful adults in my children, chances are 20% of my activities contribute to that. Spending quality time with them and putting my phone down, investing in them, just listening to them, having good conversations, that type of thing is essential. So time management, cutting out the fat, is essential to that. And it's hard to do, right? We get into bad habits. We're always under pressure. We just keep adding to things without removing anything. But a lot of what we add and a lot of the activities we do doesn't produce what we want. So destination most important. Once I have my destination, then I begin building activities to get where I want to go. And the first thing I have to look at when I'm talking about time management is, what am I doing that isn't any effective? What isn't helping anybody? Let's see. 1% also moving or stopping. Like us, we step back. Yes, exactly. Carrie Bailey said that sometimes you have to stop things or remove something from your life. and seasons change. So give yourself permission to say, hey, last year co-op was beautiful. It worked for my family. It was perfect. We did soccer as a family last year. I even coached soccer, which I've never played soccer, so we did it different. But we had a lot of fun, and we won a lot of games, and so that was good. But this year soccer didn't work, and so we didn't do it. Even though the expectation was we should, the community called and said, hey, we want you coaching. It was like, sorry, it doesn't work. My family just can't add that to the mix right now. We're too busy. And so it's important to have resets. It's important to evaluate continually, just like if you're driving a car. Have you ever been on a trip and you took a wrong turn and you realized about 100 miles down the road, this is like, so frustrating when it happens. You realize about 100 miles or even 5 miles down the road that you took a wrong turn and you're not going the direction you should. What do? You don't keep going. You stop, you turn around, and you go back and get back on the route. So destination and then resets. Does it look like we're on the right track? Are we on the right road? Am I still seeing the signs that are taking me to where I want to go, right? So reduce your load. If a bunch of what you're doing is just adding activities to your family, but it's not actually helping you move in the destination you want to go, then don't be afraid to let that go and make changes to it. Okay. Can you offload anything? Are there some things that perhaps you can offload to an older student? We've had a lot of success in having older students work with younger students, or even offloading certain tasks. Most people would be surprised to know my oldest daughter has done all the shopping, grocery shopping for years, and she does a fantastic job of it. She keeps us within a budget, and every now and then we need a reset, but for the most part, we just do a phenomenal job of that's her responsibility, and it's helping her. Sometimes it's hard when my older kids have gotten married because they cook for a larger family and there's only two. But it's still, it's producing something in them. It's helping them, but it's also offloading this huge responsibility that's hard to keep up with. There are other tasks. We have the house chores are all divided in between the kids, and everybody working together, we can manage it. And we have to have resets. We are in the process of a reset right now where it's like, hey guys, everybody needs to be reminded that we have chores to do. And if we're going to keep succeeding as a family, we need to be doing our chores. If we don't, we're not. But at the same time, we were able to offload some of those responsibilities. For years, our kids have been fairly independent. They can get breakfast for themselves at a fairly young age. They can get sandwiches for themselves at lunch. And sometimes when life is really busy, we standardized. Peanut butter and jelly is what we have for lunch. There's going to be bread, there's going to be peanut butter, there's going to be jelly. And you clean it up, you make it, you clean it up, you're responsible to feed yourself. And just doing something like that and freeing up that lunch time has helped. So is there any way that you can offload? Is there a place that you can change the schedule just a little bit? And again, these don't have to be drastic, right? We're talking little changes throughout the day. And if you take 1% here and 1% here and 1% here with just little tweaks, it adds up to being a 10 to 20% lifestyle change. Let's see, Missouri says, I heard it once said, even the right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. That's awesome. The right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. That can be applied so many fantastic ways. So, and habit removal is so hard, especially when it's good. Yes. And as Missouri says, even the right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. So, looking for just in time management, looking for ways again that everything we're doing is heading us towards the destination, and also beginning to structure our life in a way that, you know, we can go make the same trip from Arkansas to New York on bicycles, but it's a lot more comfortable in a vehicle. And so we want to make sure that we have the best equipment for the job to get us there with the least amount of energy. My family we'd probably enjoy a bike trip to New York for the first couple of miles, and then I think it would get old. Okay, classroom. Let's talk classroom. So we have a lot of different styles. Master books, we love seeing the diversity in the homeschool rooms that you have. We know people who enjoy informal learning on the couch, some who enjoy a formal classroom. The input that I would have is, is there anything you can do to the process? Properly equipped, good lighting. Does lighting have an effect on the mood? Some families enjoy an informal structure, but then maybe you're struggling with your students' ability to transfer. So last night we wrestled on the couch. Now we want to sit on the couch and do schooling. If your child is struggling with that, maybe experiment a little bit and see, do they do better if they have a desk or an area that's designated for school? For our family, we've done it a lot of different ways. I think that having a designated schoolroom works. I think that having a schedule works for our family because kids know, hey, at 9 o'clock, you're expected to be at your desk and working. And Kristen has taken time to do a family schedule. So they know during the course of the day, Monday through Friday, this is where you're supposed to be at this time. And oftentimes she'll be like, what time is it? You're not supposed to be down here in the kitchen. The calendar or the schedule says you should be up doing schoolwork, back up to your desk. But once they go to the desk, the brain is easy. I've lost my thought. The brain has an easier time of making the transition to, oh, this is my desk, I'm doing schoolwork, versus last night we played and wrestled on the couch, but now I'm supposed to be doing my schoolwork and this isn't a fun place. So sometimes 1% improvement in your classroom can just be having, making sure the pencils are sharp, there's good lighting, and there's a place where the brain recognizes that. Other kids are fantastic. They're just motivated. They would do their schoolwork anywhere, and they're fine with that. But we homeschool not in a vacuum. Every kid is different, right? So some of my kids can do that and some of my kids can't. As a family, it's just easier to have a schedule, to have a location that we have. And this year we've really made an effort we installed lights over their desks so that they have really good lighting. Kristen has a nice big bucket of pencils so that there's always pencils and a sharpening solution so that the right equipment is there. We've tried to remove unnecessary distractions. The color of the room that was chosen is just really conducive to a very relaxed, peaceful environment. And everybody knows that when you're in the schoolroom, this is what you're doing. So it works well for our family. And then, and we certainly wouldn't impose that on any other family. These are just tips and suggestions and things that we're doing and that works for us. Yeah, Desiree, that's behavior issues. That to me is one of the big reasons that having like a schoolroom and having a schedule, we just found that it was really tough if you don't, have a strict school starts here, school ends here to then maintain, because we're in each other's face all the time. And so the clock almost becomes the bad guy as opposed to mom and dad being the bad guy. We had a harder case at one point with one of our students who we were coming out of a school situation, and the relationship of mom or dad having to try to be the bad guy in the teaching just wasn't working, which is why we also, if I could modify what we do with our scoring and why we do it as a family the way we do, where we have the student score it, they're responsible for it, but then the score on the test is what it is because it removes that friction point of trying to motivate them, and it puts the responsibility on them. And in the behavior side of it, you remove that. It's just one less thing to have to deal with during the day. It's not because we don't want to score the work. It's just it removes a friction point and it puts the responsibility on them. So I kind of went off on a tangent. Hopefully that made sense. Even in the classroom, one of the things that we see is curriculum, cutting the fat on curriculum. One of our students right now seems to be overwhelmed. He's had a fantastic attitude. And can I say, we had sickness in the house, and the Master Books curriculum, I joked about it, but I said, thank goodness for Master Books curriculum. But it really is true. the kids were able to, at 9 o'clock, they're up doing their schoolwork. They're getting their work done. It was fantastic, even though typically, it wouldn't go on long that way without a little bit of plate spinning and motivation. But in the middle of life happening, they've actually done pretty well with it. But sometimes with curriculum, we need to also do resets, that maybe we've overloaded a student or we just have a wrong fit. And we need to look at that as is that maybe 1% of the issue that's contributing to not being successful. Maybe mom really liked the curriculum or dad really liked the curriculum and wanted their child to do it because we could see them, like we have this logic curriculum that's coming, which is it's gonna blow your mind. I think it's fantastic for high school students. Well, I want all my kids to take that because I see them standing in the great forum having a debate. Well, I need to make sure that the reason they're taking a logic curriculum is because it complements them and helps accomplish the goal rather than what I want to live out through them. And so sometimes I think we do have to look at the curriculum and make an adjustment to that. Is the workload too heavy? Am I focused first on the basics? Am I nailing the basics? And then what I'm adding to that to make sure that it's not overwhelming to them. All right. So you all know your body and your health, your time management, your classrooms best. What I'm suggesting are definitely not, hey, you need to do this, because Kristen would probably be the first to tell everybody I know very little about that. But these are just suggestions, things to get you thinking, hey, are there little places today that we could begin doing? Maybe even as my kids, we sit down. I'm planning this discussion tonight with my family. We're having a family meeting, and I'm having a reset meeting to do this very same thing, where we're going to talk about some of the areas that we've become inefficient, where I think we could be a little more efficient to be more successful as a family. So these are just some ideas as we're talking about it to help reduce some friction points to help you be more successful. I do know that trying to do overnight overhauls and change everything at once is very difficult, and it's very difficult to sustain, where building small practices over a length of time and then building on success is important. Student growth. This is one that can we do little changes to help students be more successful. One of the things that we've seen this year that I enjoy very much, the Thanksgiving tree that was from my story. But actually doing that, we know from science, we know from scripture that this is one of the best ways to position our brains for good things to happen. Even in the scripture, if you look through the tabernacle and the way that we were to enter into worship, we entered the courts with thanksgiving. That put us in a healthy place mentally, right? To be able to come into worship and to receive what the Lord had for us. Well, academically, I think it's the same. We should come into the schoolroom with thanksgiving. And is that just one thing we could do to set the day a little different? So before we start school, we're going to have one Thanksgiving moment. What are you thankful for today? And we reward the behavior we want. We don't reward the behavior we don't want. So if they give us a legitimate, I am thankful for, we reward, we applause that, we give it a lot of praise. But maybe just being thankful for one moment puts the mind in the right state of mind to be able to sit down and start learning, as opposed to starting off on a negative, where I'm frustrated. You need to go and do your school, and you need to get started on this now, and that type of thing. Maybe that's your 1%. Self-control. Is there a place that perhaps the student needs to just begin learning a little bit more self-control? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate? I think emotional intelligence is so important for our kids, and being able to read mom or dad. My parenting, and this is solely me, the views of what I'm going to say probably are not endorsed anywhere else, but I was always a little bit unpredictable as a parent on purpose. So sometimes somebody would come to me and one of the kids would do something and I would show mercy. And I wouldn't overreact. Another time I might overreact a little bit more. What I wanted from them was for them to be able to read the situation, because I wanted them to understand that they need to be aware of that. I've seen where sometimes somebody is exactly consistent and very monotone in their responses, and the student, their kids tend to always expect the same response, so it's a known. And I want my kids to walk into a situation and read the situation. So I'm the one who provides that unpredictability that they've learned very well to walk in. Is this a good time to ask Dad for the keys or not? And there are times that are appropriate, right? There's times it's not appropriate. I've probably said it here before in the video, but if I get pulled over by an officer, I want to read that situation. There's a time to say, oh, officer, you got me again, right? Or there's a time to be very respectful and very, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And to violate that code, if you will, could cause the student a lot of pain. And so I think teaching a student self-control, teaching them to read the situation is very important. How do you do that with 1%? Well, I think you have to be very intentional about that. And maybe even in self-control, it's just saying, hey, we're going to take, and you're going to have a quiet time. At the beginning of every day, you've got 15 minutes. Here's a journal. You're going to write what you're thankful for in that journal. That's 15 minutes a day, 1%. And you're going to learn to do that, because that's going to teach you self-control, self-discipline. And then once we're done with that, then we'll go into the school or whatever. You guys are all so much smarter than me. I know you're going to get it. I'm just throwing out ideas. 1% may be helping the teacher. Is there a way that a student can actually help you? Maybe it's scoring or reading to a younger student. Maybe it's cleaning up the schoolroom at the end of the day and making sure that everything is in its place. If we were in a classroom setting, that wouldn't be unheard of for the student to help clean up the schoolroom and make sure everything was right. And we've implemented that in our home as well, where I've taken that responsibility. Mom has offloaded that responsibility. I take it. So at the end of the day, before bedtime, I'll go up into the schoolroom, and then I'll call everybody up, and we'll sweep it up, we'll clean it up, so that we start fresh tomorrow. And that's something that Mom doesn't have to deal with, is a schoolroom with pencil shavings and chairs all over the place and things a mess, as best as we can. Okay. Student growth. What about sleep? Sleep is important. We know sleep is important. Our students, do they have a bedtime? Is that just one thing that we could add to the process, that maybe having a bedtime or a waking time or setting up a routine would be helpful? Diet. We know that, a lot of carbs and sugars and that type of thing affect the brain's ability to process new things. And so is diet something that maybe we could just make some minor tweaks? It don't have to be huge. We're bringing in a dietitian. Is there just ways that maybe we can cut down a sugary cereal and move to a healthier solution for breakfast that would help the mind be sharper and have a better attitude? Interesting. We had a friend who had a business. They were very stressed and had a family member who was kind of a health food nut, and she recommended that they take like a complex B vitamin, vitamin B12. Well, what's amazing about this B12 vitamin is it helps process stress, right? It helps the body deal with stress. Well, that, for me, I took on that little habit, and just for me to take vitamin B12 is an amazing, like, physically, mentally, in every way, my body responds to the lack of B12. I feel the tension, the anxiety. I don't handle it well. If I regularly take vitamin B, it's B12. If I regularly take that vitamin or a complex B vitamin, all of a sudden I just have such a better capability of handling stress, and I have a clearer mind. Well, just something like that makes such a huge difference for me managing life. It's the same with our kids. And so maybe that's an area that we can tweak it a little bit. Let's see. Okay. Quiet play. I think it's important that our kids learn to be able to entertain themselves. It's hard to do. because we are our children's best entertainment for some reason. And I think it's important to teach them to be able to quietly play a little bit of time and maybe give you that 15 minutes that you need for mommy time to be able to breathe some oxygen so you can be healthy to serve others as well. So, end of my teaching tip. I'm just going to say, know your destination. What do you want? If you're driving around hoping to arrive at some destination, it probably isn't going to work. Choose a destination that you can go to and you know where you're going so that everything you're doing is taking you there. Once you've done that, there are just some little tweaks that you can do to make life a little bit easier for your family so that 1% here, 1% here, 1% here can begin removing some of the friction points. What we do with Masterbook's curriculum is we've tried to adapt this method in the curriculum. So we give you a daily schedule to make it so you know where you are and it's easy. We also want you to have the freedom with Masterbook's curriculum to make it yours. If you don't like the schedule, adapt it. Absolutely. We give you full permission to make the curriculum yours. We want student activity sheets and answer keys and everything to be easy to access and easy to work. And so in that aspect, the curriculum should be open and go without any issues. And that's what we work towards with that. We remove as many friction points, but we also know that if there's other friction points, the curriculum's only going to solve so many solutions, right? Curriculum isn't everything, even though it is a very big part of it. Your classroom administration and management style also play heavily into that fact. And I know with 9 kids and a business and in ministry, there were times that our life was absolutely insane. We had all the kids. We had the busy season with the business. There were 3 tractor trailers out waiting to be unloaded. I had 2 salesmen came to the house. We had a number of employees, and I remember standing looking over my yard, and with all these people, my septic tank had just overfilled and blew out the yard. And in the middle of all that, I've got a septic fountain going on. And that's when Kristen and I looked at each other and said, it's time to move the business out of our home. And that day we went looking for a building that we could move the business to and separate and have a healthier family experience. And the seasons had changed. And just being at a place where maybe you're frustrated and you're overwhelmed a little bit with homeschooling as we move into, okay, now we're through the excitement of the beginning of the year and we're moving into a more mature year. Maybe there are some hard decisions that have to be made, but it's so important that you do take care of yourself and then look for little ways that you can maybe tweak things. And I also say over and over again, so important, okay? Measure success by success, not by the number of failures it takes to achieve it. So today we were successful. We're going to say we're successful. We're going to celebrate that win. If I fail in an area or I fail tomorrow, we're not going to measure our success by the number of failures that it takes to be successful. We're going to measure success by success. Comparison is the death of happiness. Don't compare yourself to other homeschool families. You're in your own car, driving to your own destination. Wave at the other families when you see them on the road, heading the same direction you are, but don't compare yourself to them or their car, okay? You guys are rock stars. We love seeing the pictures coming in of kids learning and families celebrating homeschool. We know that there are struggles that families are going through. We've experienced them and experienced them ourselves, but we can do this. Going through this as many years as we've homeschooled, graduating, we've graduated 5 kids and been in this game a long time. It is so worth it. All right. I know it may not always feel it, but it is so worth it. You're going to see the fruits of your reward. Don't grow weary in well-doing, for you will reap if you faint not. That is so true for today. All right, guys. I hope you were blessed by this. Love to hear your feedback. Please continue commenting. We'll monitor this post if there's any questions. And may God bless you. May God bless your homeschool. And for you homeschool dads, we continue to pray. We are excited and praying that God is going to do and is doing a remarkable thing in the lives of families and with fathers. He's inspiring them, motivating them. He's creating in them a desire to lead their families victoriously. Really, I'm excited about that call. And I'm asking every family who watches this video to please begin interceding and praying for the families represented through the Moms of Master Books, that those fathers that are represented in this group would become mighty men of God, and they would raise up warriors for the kingdom of God. All right? God bless you guys.